Now there ain't many things more southern than fried green tomatoes. Just the fried part alone tells you it's southern. And there's so many maters down here, I mean, we don't know what to do with them all, so why not pick them before they're ready and fry them up. Now if you see my fried okra video or my fish fry video, I used a different kind of breading on that. It didn't work as well for the fried green tomatoes, so I came up with a different one that is absolutely delicious. Oh, and at the end of the video, I'm gonna fry up one more thing that I think you'll love as well. Oh, and did I mention we're not deep frying these, we're actually baking them and it comes out perfect. That's why I used a different breading. And so if you don't want to deep fry, or you want a cheap, quick, and easy way to do it, you can do it this way. I'm gonna show you how to bake fried green tomatoes right after this. I got a lot of comments after my okra video that you just don't like to deep fry. And I totally understand that. I tend to use healthy oils like avocado oil or olive oil to fry in. And if you do want to fry these fried green tomatoes or the other recipe, I would definitely recommend using the breading from my okra video. But for baking, these come out much better, and it's a quick and easy way to do it if you got some green tomatoes. Let's go to the kitchen and I'll show you how I put these together. You ready? So for fried green tomatoes, the first thing you're gonna need is green tomatoes. Now, you may wonder, what's a green tomato? Well, it's just a tomato that ain't quite ready yet. And just get as many of them as you wanna fry up right now. The next thing you're gonna need is some Parmesan cheese. This is one of the components of our breading that makes these fried green tomatoes without frying the green tomatoes. The next thing you're gonna need is some pork panko, or pork breadcrumbs, if you will. Doesn't sound quite as fancy as panko, but it's the same thing. If you haven't seen my video about how I make them, I still make them the exact same way. It's the easiest way I found. I'll put a link up there for you. Or just get yourself some pork rinds, a hammer, and a plastic sack and go to town. Hey, it's up to you. The next thing you're gonna need is a couple of eggs, and that's what we're gonna put these tomatoes in before we bread them up. And this recipe is all about the ratios, so get as many as you need to coat as many tomatoes as you're going to do. The next thing you're going to need is some heavy cream, and make sure you don't get any of that low-fat stuff. Heavy whipping cream, not light whipping cream. And then you're going to need some salt, just for some seasoning on there. Very simple seasoning. You'll do salt and, of course, some coarse black pepper or fine black pepper. Whatever you got. The best pepper to use is the pepper you got on hand. And then while we're at it, the other thing we're going to fry up are some of these beautiful zucchini. We got some fresh zucchini on hand, so while we're not frying these tomatoes, might as well do some zucchini too. The first thing we're going to need to do is preheat the oven to 400 degrees. That's the temperature that you want to bake these at. Now the best way to fix your Parmesan cheese for this is a microplane grater. So if you don't have one of these, I'll put a link down there in the description, but you want it to be a nice fine grate. If you got a box grater that goes that small, that'd be fine too. But basically you just want a really fine grate like that because it helps it stick better, it helps it melt better, and make a consistent breading for the fried green tomatoes and the zucchini. And you're just gonna do equal parts of that Parmesan cheese to the pork panko. So however much you think you need of the Parmesan, put that same amount of pork panko in there, or pork breadcrumbs, whatever you want to call it. And if you happen to have any big pieces in there or chunks or whatever, just break them up as small as you can. Then you just want to use your hands or a fork or a knife or whatever you want to mix these together. Just try to get them together as much as you possibly can and incorporate them as much as possible. Now we got to make something for this breading to stick to, so I'm just going to take an egg and put it right in the bowl. Now use a proportional amount to as many green tomatoes and zucchini as what you want to fry, but basically if you were to whisk that egg up into a liquid, add about the same amount of heavy cream to it. So 1 part egg, 1 part heavy cream, if that's a thing. I know we're not baking here, but just add the same amount of liquid and then mix it all together really well. And then once you get it all mixed up proper, let's go ahead and start preparing these tomatoes. So we'll just take a green tomato and just chop the end off there. You don't want that little nubbin on the end there. And there's a little part inside here that you may not want, but I just leave it in for the most part because it doesn't bother me. Once it cooks, it's going to be just fine. And then make some slices. You don't want them too thick because you want them to cook all the way through, but you don't want them too thin either because you want them to hold up. So I'd say probably a 1/4 inch or so slices. And if you don't like using the chef's knife, you can use a bread knife because, I mean, we don't use a bread knife for bread around here, so we might as well use it for something. A serrated knife works really, really good to cut these tomatoes. I mean, I don't know about you, but this is looking pretty good already. And if you don't like that, then use this little bow knife. And if you ever get a small piece like this, and it's hard to hang on to, just stick a fork in it, and then you can use this bow knife and cut it. Now, unfortunately, I don't have a link for this knife. Somebody locally here to us makes them, and they're updating their website, and as soon as they're done, I'll put the link on here. Really love this thing, and I've never seen anything like it, but it works really good, and it'll cut as thin as you want for pretty much anything. So I'll just do another slice with that bow knife, and hey, I'm telling you, this thing's extremely sharp, so if you end up buying one of these, just be real careful with it. Ask me how I know how sharp it is. And then while we're at it, let's just get some of this Black Beauty zucchini in there. You don't want to fry up the ends, but just chop those in about the same thickness of pieces, you know, about 1/4 inch. You may want to make them a little smaller. Just depends on what you like. But just chop up your whole zucchini, and we'll use the whole breading for both of these because we're going to fry them both up together by baking them. Now, if you like Southern side dishes or Southern food in general, don't miss another video. Click subscribe down there. Hit the bell next to it, and anytime I do a new one, you'll know about it. Now we're going to set up a little station. So we've got our zucchini, we got our green tomatoes, we got our egg and cream together, and we've got our Parmesan and pork breadcrumb together. So I'll just put some of those green tomatoes in that egg wash, and then just lay it right over into the breading. Once you let a little bit of that excess egg wash drip off, you don't want them soppy wet. Now, keep one hand wet and one hand dry unless you want breaded fingers, because that's what's going to happen if both hands get wet and you try to go in here. So use the wet hand to put it in the egg wash, use the dry hand to bread it up like that and pat it down, and then use the dry hand again to put it right on a parchment paper lined baking tray. Now, you can spray it down if you want to, but you don't have to. It's not going to stick to it. But we are going to spray the tops in just a minute. Go ahead and throw some of that zucchini in the egg wash, get those ready, and we'll bread all these up. Just take your dry hand and push some of that breading down on there. Make sure it sticks real good, and make sure you cover them all the way. Now we'll just make sure we got them all on the tray together. They play real good together. So halfway through this baking process, you'll just spin the pan around and keep on going, but they're going to do just fine on the same pan. Now to make sure these are nice and crispy, because we're frying them, but we're baking them, we're going to spray the tops of all these with either avocado oil or olive oil, whichever one you have. Now you can flip them halfway through also, spray the other side, but I didn't do that, and they come out just fine. And now it's time for them to hang out in the oven for about 20-25 minutes, and you can turn them over halfway through or rotate the pan if you want. Now while we're waiting for those, let's do a simple sauce. You're going to need some Dijon mustard, some of my keto honey, and if you haven't seen that, I'll put a link to that video somewhere around here, and then also to my Duke's mayonnaise. Now you're just going to do equal parts of my keto honey, Dijon mustard, and the mayonnaise. I mean, it can't get any easier than that, right? And just mix that up real good. And then you're just going to finish it with a little splash of some white vinegar. And it sounds too easy to be delicious, but it is delicious. You're going to love it. Just mix it up real good. And that's ready to dip those fried green tomatoes in and the zucchini in. And whatever else you decide you want to fry up, everything goes good with this simple sauce. So after 20 or 25 minutes, these are ready to eat. Look how beautiful these are. Make sure you season them as soon as they come out of the oven while they're nice and vulnerable. You can serve it with that sauce, and you can have either the green tomatoes by themselves or pair it up with that fried zucchini or whatever else you want to fry up. If you're wanting something that goes great with fried green tomatoes or that fried zucchini, I'm going to put a couple videos over here that you'll enjoy. Thanks for all your likes, all your comments, all your shares. I really appreciate it. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you right over there on one of those videos.